My beloved child, wait, listen, pause here for just a moment, because something subtle is already shifting while you hear these words. Most people believe change is slow, heavy, and distant. They imagine years, decades, long roads filled with struggle. But what if that assumption is the very thing keeping them stuck? What if the real transformation happens quietly, in an instant, the moment a single internal switch is flipped? Elon Musk once hinted at this without drama, without noise. He spoke as if it were obvious. He said life can change faster than you think, if you do one thing. Not 100 habits. Not a complicated system. One thing. And that idea alone should make you stop breathing for a second. Because if it's true, then everything you thought about timing, readiness, and luck might be incomplete. Think about moments that rewrote history. They didn't start with applause. They started with a decision no one else could see. A private realization. A quiet refusal to keep thinking the same way. Progress doesn't always arrive as motion. Sometimes it arrives as clarity. And clarity moves faster than effort ever could. Stay with this thought a little longer. What if your current life isn't limited by resources, but by the questions you've been asking? Most people ask, how do I get there? Visionaries ask, what is the right problem to solve? That shift alone collapses time. When the question changes, the future accelerates toward you. You might feel a strange familiarity right now, like you've brushed against this idea before. That's not an accident. Growth often announces itself as recognition, not surprise. The sense that you already knew this, but never trusted it enough to act. Before you move on, consider this. Speed in life doesn't come from rushing. It comes from alignment. When thought, intention, and action finally point in the same direction, momentum appears instantly. No friction. No delay. And suddenly, what felt impossible yesterday feels inevitable today. This is not motivation. It's awareness. And awareness is the fastest force there is. My beloved child, hold on. Before your attention drifts, notice how your mind is already trying to interpret this. That's the second layer of the message. Elon Musk didn't talk about changing circumstances first. He talked about changing perspective. Because the moment you see differently, you act differently. And the moment you act differently, outcomes rearrange themselves. Most people wait for confidence before they move. Visionaries understand that confidence is the result, not the requirement. Action creates belief, not the other way around. This is why life seems to reward a few people disproportionately. They're not smarter. They're earlier. Earlier in deciding. Earlier in committing. Earlier in seeing what others overlook. If this resonates, you're not alone. Share this idea with someone who feels stuck, or leave a thought in the comments about what moment changed your direction. And if you want to stay connected to ideas that sharpen awareness like this, you know where to find the subscribe button. No pressure, just an open door. Now, here's the part most people miss. The one thing isn't hustle. It isn't discipline. It's not even courage. It's choosing to think in first principles instead of borrowed assumptions. To strip a problem down to what truly matters and rebuild from there. When you do that, paths appear where walls used to be. This is why breakthroughs look sudden from the outside. Internally, they were prepared by a shift in thinking that happened long before results showed up. The world only sees the explosion. It never sees the silent ignition. Wait till the final moment of this idea. Because once you understand it fully, you can't unsee it. And once you can't unsee it, your decisions start changing automatically. Not forced. Not dramatic. Just precise. Life speeds up when your thinking becomes clean. My beloved child, one more pause. Because this is where everything quietly connects. The future doesn't respond to wishful thinking. It responds to clarity plus commitment. When Elon Musk says life can change faster than you think, he's pointing to a law most people ignore. Reality reorganizes itself around decisive minds. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need to know every step. You need to decide who you are becoming before evidence appears. That identity choice pulls opportunities toward you at a speed logic can't explain. Notice how this doesn't feel like pressure. It feels like relief. Because deep down, you've always known waiting was heavier than moving forward. The moment you stop negotiating with doubt, time compresses. Days carry more weight. Choices ripple further. Before you go, hear this line clearly. Your life is not delayed. It's paused, waiting for alignment. And alignment begins the instant you commit to thinking differently, consistently, without apology. Stay aware. Something is already unfolding. You were meant to hear this section most of all, because the question left hanging before hasn't stopped working on you. That idea about life accelerating, about one internal shift collapsing years into moments, wasn't meant to feel complete yet. It was meant to echo. And if it's still echoing, that's the signal. Here is the recall you may not have noticed. If change really can happen faster than you think, then why doesn't it happen for everyone? That's the mystery. And the answer isn't effort. It's direction. Elon Musk has often approached reality like an engineer approaches time, not as something fixed, but as something that can be compressed. When he speaks about progress, he doesn't talk about waiting for permission from the world. He talks about acting as if the future is already editable. That mindset alone bends outcomes. Pause here for a breath. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. Most people live reactively. Visionaries live preemptively. They don't ask, what is happening to me? They ask, what am I building toward? That single question changes how fast life responds. Here's the first reveal. Speed doesn't come from moving faster. It comes from removing hesitation. The second you stop arguing with yourself, energy frees up. Decisions land cleanly. And suddenly, opportunities don't feel random, they feel coordinated. You'll understand this more clearly in the next few seconds. Think about how long people delay action because they want certainty. But certainty never comes first. Momentum does. This is why people who look lucky often feel calm under pressure. They've already decided who they are before the world agrees. Hope rises here, quietly. Because if this is true, then your timing hasn't been wrong. Your clarity just hasn't been complete yet. Another reveal. Softer but sharper, the future rewards those who move before the evidence arrives. That sounds risky, until you realize something deeper. Waiting for proof is the slowest strategy there is. Proof follows alignment, not the other way around. If this message resonates, you know where to find the next one. Now feel the emotional wave shift again, from hope into recognition. That strange feeling of, I've always known this, is not imagination. It's memory. At some point, you understood that your thoughts shaped the speed of your life. Then noise distracted you. Responsibilities layered over intuition. The signal faded. But it never disappeared. Stay with this a little longer. There's a reason Elon Musk emphasizes first principles thinking. When you strip a problem down to truth instead of tradition, solutions appear faster. Time shortens. Paths simplify. Progress feels sudden because it no longer fights resistance. Here's the tension returning. If thinking differently is the key, then most people will never do it. Not because they can't, but because it requires letting go of familiar stories. And letting go feels like loss, even when it's liberation. Before this part ends, let one question sit with you. What belief are you still protecting that no longer serves where you're going? Because once that belief dissolves, something else rushes in. But there's one truth still missing. Wait, before you move forward, feel this pause. Something just shifted. The missing truth from before wasn't hidden outside you. It was waiting underneath your attention. And now the question returns, sharper than ever. What is the one thing that actually accelerates a life? Here is the recall that matters. We left off at the edge of a belief dissolving. The idea that once an old story releases its grip, something else rushes in. That something is not chaos. It is direction. And direction is what turns speed into destiny. Elon Musk has never framed the future as something you wait for. He treats it as something you declare. That distinction is subtle, but it changes everything. When you declare a direction internally, your mind reorganizes itself around it. You stop scanning for safety and start scanning for leverage. Here's the next micro reveal. Most people believe motivation creates action. In reality, identity creates action. The moment you decide who you are becoming, behavior follows automatically. Not forced, not dramatic, just inevitable. This moment may explain what you've been sensing lately. That quiet restlessness. That feeling that your current pace doesn't match your inner vision. It's not impatience. It's misalignment. And misalignment feels like pressure because the future is pulling faster than the present allows. Hope rises again here, gently. Because alignment can happen instantly. You don't need to fix everything. You don't need to understand every step. You only need to choose the lens through which you see problems. When problems become raw materials instead of obstacles, time compresses. Another reveal, almost whispered. People who move fast are not reckless. They are selective. They say no quickly so they can say yes fully. They don't carry unnecessary weight, old expectations, borrowed definitions of success, outdated versions of themselves. Letting go is what creates velocity. Stay with this thread. You'll understand at the end why so many breakthroughs look sudden to the outside world. From the inside, they were prepared by a single internal commitment made long before results appeared. Now the emotional wave turns again, from revelation into mystery. Because there is still one layer deeper. If identity is the accelerator, what locks most people out of choosing it? Here it is. The final micro reveal of this part. Most people are loyal to who they have been. Not because it's working, but because it's familiar. Familiarity feels safe, even when it's limiting. Breaking that loyalty feels uncomfortable, not dangerous, but unfamiliar enough to delay action. And delay stretches time. Imagine what happens when that loyalty breaks. When you stop defending an old version of yourself and start acting from a future one. Decisions become cleaner. Distractions lose their pull. Energy stops leaking. Life doesn't just move faster, it moves with intention. Before this part closes, let one line settle without rushing past it. Speed is a side effect of clarity, not effort. And clarity begins the instant you decide which version of yourself you will no longer protect. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to hear this section now, because the pause you just felt wasn't accidental. Something is aligning. In the last part, we reached the edge of a powerful idea, that speed is born the moment you stop protecting an old version of yourself. But the unanswered question still lingers quietly beneath it all. If clarity creates speed, how do you lock clarity in so it doesn't fade? Here is the recall that pulls everything back into focus. We spoke about identity, about loyalty to who you've been, about the instant when that loyalty breaks and momentum begins. What was missing was not insight, it was execution at the level of thought. Elon Musk once explained that the future belongs to those who can hold a clear vision longer than others can tolerate uncertainty. That line alone contains the mechanism of rapid change. Most people glimpse clarity and then abandon it the moment discomfort appears. Visionaries do the opposite. They stay with the vision until reality catches up. This moment may explain what you've been sensing lately. That inner pull to simplify. To stop scattering energy across too many directions. Focus is not restriction. It is acceleration. When attention stops leaking, time stops dragging. Here comes the next micro reveal. The one thing that changes life faster than you think is not a technique. It's a decision to operate from the future instead of the past. To let future standards govern present choices. When you ask, what would the version of me who already succeeded do next? You collapse distance instantly. Hope expands here, calm and steady. Because this means you don't need to wait to become confident. You act from commitment, and confidence follows. You don't wait to feel ready. You move, and readiness forms around you. If this message resonates, you know where to find the next one. Now the emotional wave turns again. From hope into revelation. People who experience rapid transformation are not chasing motivation. They are protecting clarity. They design their environment, their inputs, their conversations to reinforce the identity they've chosen. They don't argue with doubt. They outgrow it. Stay with this for a few more seconds. You'll understand at the end why life sometimes seems to reward people all at once. It's not sudden luck. It's delayed visibility. The internal shift happened long before the external result appeared. Another reveal, subtle but decisive. The mind does not respond to wishes. It responds to instructions. Repeated, calm, consistent instructions. When you decide once and reinforce daily, the mind reorganizes priorities automatically. Action becomes simpler. Resistance weakens. Momentum builds quietly. Now feel the mystery return. Because even with clarity and identity aligned, there is one final element that determines how fast everything moves. Most people miss it because it sounds ordinary. Before this part closes, let this thought land gently. The future moves toward those who make space for it. And before the next part, something must be revealed. Wait, before you continue, notice this stillness. It's different now. The mystery we paused on wasn't about effort or even clarity. It was about space. And here is the recall that brings everything back into alignment. We ended with one quiet truth. The future moves toward those who make space for it. That line holds more power than it seems. Most people try to build a new life on top of an overcrowded one. Old habits, old schedules, old self-talk, old definitions of success. They want speed, but they never clear the runway. And without space, nothing new can land. This moment may explain what you've been sensing lately. That urge to simplify, to step back, to stop filling every hour, every thought, every decision. That urge is not laziness. It is intelligence preparing for acceleration. Here's the first micro reveal of this part. Growth doesn't always require addition. Often, it requires subtraction. When you remove what no longer aligns with your chosen identity, momentum appears naturally. Energy returns. Focus sharpens. Time feels different, lighter, faster, more responsive. Elon Musk has repeatedly structured his life around this principle, even when others misunderstood it. He simplifies ruthlessly, not because he lacks options, but because clarity demands it. Complexity slows motion. Simplicity multiplies it. Feel the emotional wave shift from tension into hope. Because making space is something you can do immediately. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You only need honesty about what is draining momentum versus what is building it. Another reveal, subtle but precise. The mind cannot move fast when it is cluttered with unresolved decisions. Every open loop consumes energy. Every postponed choice fragments attention. Closing loops, deciding, releasing, simplifying, is one of the fastest ways to feel life accelerate again. Stay with this thought. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. When you clear mental and emotional space, you send a signal. Not outward, but inward. Your mind understands that something new is allowed to arrive. And when the mind believes that, behavior shifts effortlessly. Now the wave turns again, from hope into revelation. The one thing that changes life faster than you think is not pushing harder. It is committing fully, then removing everything that competes with that commitment. Distractions lose their pull. Doubt quiets down. Direction becomes obvious. And here's the mystery returning, gently. Even knowing this, many people hesitate. Not because they don't understand, but because space feels unfamiliar. Silence can feel uncomfortable. Empty space can feel like loss before it feels like freedom. But that discomfort is temporary. Before this part ends, let this line settle without resistance. Space is not emptiness, it is invitation. And if that's true, then the final question becomes unavoidable. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to pause right here, because what comes next answers the question we left suspended. Space is invitation, yes. But invitation alone doesn't move the future. Something else must step in. And this is the recall that sharpens everything. If you make space, what exactly are you allowing to enter? That is the tension now. Most people clear space unconsciously. They rest. They disconnect. They slow down. But nothing changes. Why? Because space without intention becomes drift. And drift stretches time instead of compressing it. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That quiet awareness that clearing isn't enough. That something more precise is required. Here is the next micro reveal. Speed enters the moment. Space is paired with a single clear directive. Not many. 1. When your mind knows exactly what matters next, space turns into force. Silence turns into signal. The future knows where to land. Elon Musk approaches this with almost unsettling simplicity. He doesn't ask, "What should I do with all my time?" He asks, "What is the highest, leverage action right now?" That question alone filters noise. It collapses options. It accelerates reality. Feel the emotional wave shift, from tension into hope. Because identifying one high, leverage direction doesn't require perfection. It requires honesty. What, if moved forward consistently, would make everything else easier or irrelevant? Another reveal, quiet but powerful. Most people think speed comes from doing more. In truth, speed comes from not switching. Switching fragments energy. Focus compounds it. When you stay with one direction long enough, time bends around it. Stay with this thought. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Space creates availability. Direction creates pull. Together, they form momentum. Now the wave turns again, from hope into revelation. The one thing Elon Musk points to is not a habit. It is a standard. A personal rule that governs decisions before emotion interferes. When standards are clear, choices become automatic. You don't debate. You execute. Here's the reveal most people overlook. Standards are faster than motivation. Motivation fluctuates. Standards don't. When you decide, "This is who I operate as now," you remove friction from every future choice. Life responds immediately. And now the mystery returns, softer but deeper. If this is so effective, why don't more people live this way? Because standards require release. They demand that you disappoint your past to honor your future. That discomfort feels personal, even when it's necessary. Before this part closes, let this line settle slowly. Clarity plus standards equals velocity. And yet, even this is not the final layer. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Wait. Before your attention moves ahead, notice this quiet pressure building. It's not urgency, it's readiness. The last part ended with a promise that even clarity and standards weren't the final layer. And that question has been waiting for you. What actually locks speed into place so it doesn't fade? Here is the recall that reopens the mystery. We uncovered space, then direction, then standards, all powerful. Yet without one final element, even the clearest vision can stall. This is where most people slow down again, right at the edge of acceleration. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That feeling that you understand the ideas, but something still hasn't clicked fully. Here comes the next micro reveal. Speed becomes permanent only when decisions stop being emotional and start becoming structural. When you build systems that protect your clarity on days you don't feel inspired. Structure is what carries vision forward when mood fluctuates. Elon Musk doesn't rely on willpower. He designs his life so the right actions are the easiest ones to take. When structure supports intention, progress stops depending on motivation. It becomes automatic. Feel the emotional wave shift from tension into hope. Because this means you don't need to be on every day. You don't need perfect energy. You need alignment built into your environment, your calendar, your inputs. When the system is right, effort decreases and speed increases. Another reveal, subtle but precise. Most people think discipline creates freedom. In reality, structure creates freedom. Structure removes decision fatigue. It eliminates repeated negotiations with yourself. And when the mind stops negotiating, time speeds up. Stay with this thought. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Space allows something new. Direction points where it goes. Standards define how you operate. Structure ensures it continues even when life gets noisy. Now the wave turns again, from hope into revelation. This is why breakthroughs often follow a quiet reorganization of life. Not a dramatic leap. A rearrangement. Who you listen to. What you consume. How you start your mornings. What you no longer tolerate. These changes look small, but they reprogram speed. Here's a turning point many people miss. The future doesn't respond to intentions. It responds to patterns. When your daily patterns align with your chosen identity, results arrive. Faster than logic predicts. And now the mystery returns, gently but insistently. If structure is so powerful, why do people resist it? Because structure feels like commitment. And commitment means there is no comfortable exit. It means becoming someone new is no longer optional. Before this part ends, let this line land slowly. Acceleration begins when excuses lose their hiding places. And yet, even now, there is one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to hear this section now, because the pressure you feel isn't resistance, it's proximity. We ended on a quiet truth. Structure removes excuses, yet even structure isn't the final key. That's the recall. If patterns move the future, what gives those patterns power? Here is where everything tightens. This moment may explain what you've been sensing all along. That sense that you're close, but not fully unlocked. That you've reorganized, simplified, clarified, and still, something invisible is deciding the speed. Here comes the next micro reveal. Patterns only accelerate life when they are energized by belief. Not surface belief, deep belief. The kind that doesn't argue with circumstances. When belief is shallow, structure becomes rigid. When belief is deep, structure becomes momentum. Elon Musk has spoken about this indirectly, often without realizing how profound it sounds. He assumes progress is possible before the world confirms it. That assumption isn't arrogance. It's expectation. And expectation programs action at a subconscious level. Feel the emotional wave shift, from tension into hope. Because belief is not something you wait to feel. It is something you decide to operate from. The brain follows behavior faster than it follows affirmations. When you act as if something is inevitable, your mind begins closing gaps automatically. Another reveal, calm but sharp. Most people sabotage speed by checking for reassurance too often. They look around. They compare. They hesitate. But every time you seek validation, you slow time. Speed belongs to those who trust their internal signal more than external noise. Stay with this. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Space allowed the future to enter. Direction told it where to go. Standards governed behavior. Structure sustained momentum. Belief is what fuels it continuously. Now the wave turns again, from hope into revelation. When belief is locked in, actions stop feeling heavy. Discipline feels lighter. Focus feels natural. Life starts responding faster because you're no longer sending mixed signals to yourself. Here's a turning point most people miss. The future doesn't test belief with difficulty, it reveals belief through difficulty. When pressure appears, it's not a sign to stop. It's a mirror. And those who understand this don't slow down. They refine. Let that sit. You'll understand at the end why some people accelerate during uncertainty while others freeze. It's not intelligence. It's conviction. Now the mystery returns, deeper than before. Even belief, as powerful as it is, still depends on one final condition to fully activate. Without it, belief can remain internal. Before this part closes, let this line settle quietly. Belief moves fastest when it is expressed. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. Wait, before this continues, feel that tightening in your chest. Not fear, recognition. We ended with belief needing expression, and that truth has been hovering just beneath the surface. Here's the recall that reopens everything. Belief that stays internal moves slowly. Belief that is expressed reshapes reality. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That urge to speak differently. To act before you feel fully ready. To stop keeping your vision private. Expression is not performance. It is alignment made visible. Here comes the next reveal. The future responds fastest to signals, not intentions. When belief turns into visible action, even imperfect action, it sends a clear signal forward. And the future answers signals with opportunities. Elon Musk has never waited for consensus before expressing belief. He speaks timelines out loud. He commits publicly. He builds before certainty exists. That outward declaration does something powerful. It removes retreat. And when retreat disappears, speed appears. Feel the emotional wave shift from tension into hope. Because expression doesn't require bold speeches or grand announcements. It can be subtle, choosing differently, showing up consistently, saying no where you once said yes. These are expressions too, quiet ones, effective ones. Another reveal, sharp and unexpected. Most people think visibility slows them down because of judgment. In reality, invisibility slows them down because it preserves escape routes. When nothing is at stake, time stretches. When something is at stake, focus sharpens. Stay with this. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Expression locks belief into the physical world. It turns possibility into trajectory. Once a trajectory exists, events begin lining up, not magically, but logically. Now the wave turns again, from hope into revelation. This is why commitments accelerate life. Not because they guarantee success, but because they eliminate indecision. Indecision is the slowest state a human can live in. Commitment collapses timelines. Here's a turning point most people overlook. Expression doesn't need approval to work. It only needs consistency. When actions consistently reflect belief, doubt loses its leverage. The mind stops questioning and starts executing. Let this settle. You'll understand at the end why the fastest changes often follow a moment of decisive exposure. A line crossed. A choice made visible. A future claimed openly. And now the mystery returns, deeper and quieter. If expression activates belief, what determines which expressions actually accelerate life, and which ones drain it? Because not all action creates speed. Before this part closes, let this line land gently. The future listens most closely when your actions and beliefs say the same thing. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to pause right here, because the question from before is sharper now. Not all action creates speed. Some movement drains it. That's the recall. If expression activates belief, then precision decides whether life accelerates or stalls. This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That restless energy that appears after you commit, paired with a quiet doubt about where to place it. Direction without precision scatters force. Precision turns force into thrust. Here's the next reveal. The fastest lives are built around constraint, not freedom. That sounds backward until you see it. Constraint filters action. It narrows choices to the few that matter. When choices narrow, time collapses. Elon Musk operates inside deliberate constraints. He sets impossible deadlines, limited resources, and clear success criteria. Those constraints don't slow him down. They eliminate waste. When waste disappears, velocity appears. Feel the emotional wave shift, from tension into hope. Because constraint is something you can choose immediately. Decide what you will not do. Decide what no longer qualifies for your attention. Every no frees energy for a stronger yes. Another reveal, subtle and decisive. Precision begins with a single metric. One measure that tells you if you're moving forward or just staying busy. When the metric is clear, effort organizes itself. When it's vague, effort disperses. Stay with this. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Space invited the future. Direction pointed it. Standards governed behavior. Structure sustained momentum. Belief fueled it. Expression activated it. Precision aims it. Now the wave turns again, from hope into revelation. Most people exhaust themselves by trying to improve everything at once. Visionaries improve the bottleneck. The one point where a small shift creates a massive downstream effect. That's leverage. And leverage is speed's closest ally. Here's a turning point many miss. Precision doesn't mean perfection. It means relevance. Doing the right imperfect thing beats doing 10 polished distractions. When relevance is high, results arrive faster, even if the path looks messy. Let this settle. You'll understand at the end why rapid transformation often looks focused to the point of obsession. It's not obsession. It's alignment under constraint. And now the mystery returns, quieter but deeper. Even with precision. Acceleration still depends on one final alignment. Something that determines whether speed compounds or resets. Before this part closes, let this line land gently. Velocity multiplies when effort is aimed, not scattered. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to hear this right now, because the last mystery hasn't released you yet. Precision aims effort, yes. But the recall from before is sharper than that. Even perfectly aimed effort can reset instead of compound. And the question waiting underneath is simple, unsettling, and powerful. What makes speed multiply instead of restart? This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That feeling that you've been making progress, yet something keeps pulling you back to zero. Not failure. Friction. Invisible friction. Here comes the next micro reveal. Speed compounds only when actions are reinforced by feedback. Not praise. Not opinions. Feedback that is real, immediate, and grounded in reality. Without feedback, motion becomes guesswork. With feedback, motion becomes learning. And learning accelerates faster than effort ever could. Elon Musk is relentless about feedback loops. He doesn't fall in love with ideas, he tests them. He builds, observes, adjusts, and rebuilds. That cycle is not slow. It's explosive, because every loop sharpens accuracy and removes wasted motion. Feel the emotional wave shift, from tension into hope. Because feedback doesn't require perfection. It requires humility. The willingness to look directly at results without defending the process. When ego steps aside, progress speeds up. Another reveal, quiet but decisive. Most people repeat actions hoping for better outcomes. Visionaries change actions based on outcomes. That difference alone separates steady motion from exponential growth. Stay with this. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Space allowed something new. Direction pointed it. Standards governed behavior. Structure sustained it. Belief fueled it. Expression activated it. Precision aimed it. Feedback refines it. Now the wave turns again, from hope into revelation. This is why fast, moving lives feel adaptive instead of rigid. They don't cling to plans. They cling to learning. When learning becomes the priority, setbacks lose their power. Every result becomes useful. Here's a turning point most people miss. Feedback shortens time because it removes illusion. Illusion is expensive. It keeps you investing energy in the wrong places. The moment illusion dissolves, effort redirects, and speed returns. Let this settle slowly. You'll understand at the end why those who move fastest are often the most honest with themselves. Not harsh, honest. They look at what is, not what they hoped would be. And now the mystery returns, quieter but more focused. Even with feedback sharpening every move, there is still one final element that decides whether acceleration sustains, or eventually stalls. Because learning alone is not enough. Before this part closes, let this line rest without resistance. Growth accelerates when truth is welcomed quickly. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to stop right here, because what's about to surface changes how everything before it works. The recall from the last part is still alive. Feedback sharpens movement, learning accelerates progress, yet even learning can stall. And that leaves one final question echoing quietly: what makes acceleration last instead of fading over time? This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That awareness that improvement alone isn't enough. That feeling that you've learned, adjusted, refined, yet something deeper is still deciding the pace. Here comes the next micro reveal. Speed sustains only when learning turns into integration. Not information, not insight. Integration. When lessons change how you operate automatically, without conscious effort, progress stops resetting. Elon Musk doesn't just learn quickly, he absorbs lessons into how he thinks. Mistakes don't sit outside him as memories. They become part of the system. That's why the same error rarely happens twice. Integration eliminates repetition. And repetition is the enemy of speed. Feel the emotional wave shift, from tension into hope. Because integration doesn't require intensity. It requires reflection. A pause long enough for experience to settle into instinct. When instinct upgrades, action becomes cleaner, faster, more precise. Another reveal, quiet but powerful. Most people collect lessons like souvenirs. Visionaries install lessons like software updates. Once installed, behavior changes permanently. No reminders needed. No motivation required. Stay with this. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Space allowed entry. Direction aimed it. Standards governed it. Structure sustained it. Belief fueled it. Expression activated it. Precision aimed it. Feedback refined it. Integration locks it in. Now the wave turns again, from hope into revelation. This is why true growth feels calm, not chaotic. Once lessons integrate, effort decreases while results increase. Life begins responding faster because fewer mistakes need correcting. Here's a turning point most people miss. Integration happens when you stop narrating the past and start embodying the lesson. When you no longer say, "I learned that," but simply act differently without thinking. Let this settle. You'll understand at the end why the fastest lives look simple from the outside. It's not because they avoid complexity. It's because complexity has already been resolved internally. And now the mystery returns, quieter but unmistakable. Even with integration, even with momentum locked in, there is still one final alignment that determines whether speed becomes destiny. Because progress can move fast, but destiny moves with purpose. Before this part closes, let this line rest gently. What you integrate becomes who you are. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to arrive at this moment, because what's missing now is not another layer of effort, but a final alignment that changes everything. Here is the recall that pulls the thread tight. Integration locked learning into instinct, yet even instinct can drift. And the question still breathing beneath it all is this: what turns momentum into destiny? This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That quiet feeling that your progress wants meaning. That speed without purpose feels incomplete. Movement alone is not fulfillment. Direction alone is not destiny. Here comes the next reveal. Destiny forms when speed aligns with values. Not borrowed values. Not inherited expectations. Personal, chosen values. When actions move fast in a direction you deeply respect, time stops feeling wasted. Every step reinforces identity. Elon Musk often frames his work around outcomes larger than himself, advancing technology, expanding possibility, shaping the future. That alignment is not decoration. It's fuel. When speed serves something meaningful, endurance increases. Burnout disappears. Momentum stabilizes. Feel the emotional wave shift, from tension into hope. Because values don't restrict speed. They protect it. They prevent you from accelerating towards something that later feels empty. When values are clear, choices feel lighter. You stop guessing. You move cleanly. Another reveal, subtle but decisive. Most people slow down because they're conflicted. They want progress, but they're unsure what it's for. That internal conflict creates drag. Resolve the conflict, and speed returns naturally. Stay with this. In the next few seconds, everything will connect. Space allowed the future. Direction aimed it. Standards governed it. Structure sustained it. Belief fueled it. Expression activated it. Precision aimed it. Feedback refined it. Integration locked it in. Values give it meaning. Now the wave turns again, from hope into revelation. When values and velocity align, discipline feels different. It no longer feels like pressure. It feels like integrity in motion. You're not forcing yourself forward, you're honoring something important. Here's a turning point most people overlook. Destiny isn't chosen at the finish line. It's chosen at the decision points you face daily. Small choices, aligned with values, compound faster than dramatic gestures ever could. Let this settle gently. You'll understand at the end why the fastest transformations also feel the most peaceful. They're not fighting against who you are. They're expressing it. And now the mystery returns, softer but unmistakable. Even with values aligned, there is still one final truth that determines whether destiny fully unfolds, or remains potential. Because knowing what matters is powerful, but living it requires one last shift. Before this part closes, let this line rest quietly. Speed finds its highest form when it serves meaning. But there's one truth still missing. Before the next part, something must be revealed. You were meant to hear this final section now, because everything you followed until this moment has been quietly preparing you for one simple realization. The recall from the last part is clear. Non-negotiables protect your values under pressure. Decisions are already made. Speed becomes stable. And yet, one final question has been waiting patiently beneath all of it. What makes everything finally lock? This moment may explain what you've been sensing. That strange calm mixed with anticipation. The feeling that the pieces are already in place, but they haven't fully fused yet. Here is the final reveal. Life accelerates permanently when identity and action become the same thing. Not aligned. Not coordinated. The same. When there is no gap between who you believe you are and what you do next, resistance disappears entirely. Time stops arguing with you. Elon Musk operates from this place more often than people realize. He doesn't separate thinking from doing, vision from execution, identity from action. He moves as if the future version of himself is already present, making decisions through him. That is why progress appears sudden. There is no internal delay. Feel the emotional wave shift, from tension into deep hope. Because this doesn't require becoming someone new. It requires owning who you already decided to be. Fully, quietly, without waiting for confirmation. Another reveal, gentle but absolute. Most people experience friction because they are split. Part of them moves forward, part of them stays behind to explain, justify, or protect an old self. When that split heals, energy flows in one direction. And one direction is fast. Stay with this feeling. You'll understand at the end why the fastest transformations don't feel chaotic. They feel clean, simple, almost obvious in hindsight. Here is the final connection. Space allowed the future to arrive. Direction aimed it. Standards governed it. Structure sustained it. Belief fueled it. Expression activated it. Precision focused it. Feedback refined it. Integration locked it in. Values gave it meaning. Non-negotiables protected it. Identity became it. And when identity becomes action, life has nothing left to negotiate. This is the one thing. Not a habit. Not a trick. Not a secret routine. A decision to live as the person who already understands where they are going. Let this land softly. This moment may explain what you've been sensing all along, that you were never late. never behind, just waiting to stop dividing yourself. And if that's true, then your life really can change faster than you think.